Good morning. My name is Randy Newswanger. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm a member of the Worship Associates team here, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this progressive spiritual community where we come together to nourish the spirit, connect in love, and live for justice. At UUCL, as we like to refer to ourselves, love is our only doctrine, and service and justice are our most sacred prayers. So we pray by striving to live lives in words and deeds that affirm that Black lives matter. And our doctrine of love has moved us to affirm for decades that love is divine and love is what makes a family. In this congregation, we celebrate the many ways that people can nourish the spirit. We welcome you with all of your beliefs, doubts, questions, curiosities, and imaginations. You are welcome to journey and grow with us as we seek to live lives filled with love. We offer a warm welcome to anyone new here. Thank you for taking the brave step of checking us out. There are many ways to get involved, and we encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter to find out more. We also invite you to join a special breakout room after the service if you have questions you would like to ask about Unitarian Universalism or about this congregation. If you're joining on Zoom today, I invite you to switch to gallery view to see the community gathered. Your picture will not go out over live stream if you switch to gallery view. So I invite you to find gallery view in the settings if it's easy. And I invite you to bring one hand to your heart to connect with yourself. And bring one hand into the air and gently wave to the others in our gathered community. You can expand that wave to be as fluid and as expansive as you desire. You might imagine you're sending a blessing of love. And imagine you are receiving a blessing of love. And though we can't see the people on the phone, we can imagine waving to them. And the people on the live stream who we can't see and can't see us. And the people in the future who watch the recording, we wave to them all. Good, and bring your hand back to yourself. Just come back to your own being. And I invite us all into sacred space as Reverend Israel lights the chalice. Come, light a flame, a spark of an idea, a slowly dawning moment, a full vision sprung from dream to waking life, a blazing bonfire of hope, a beacon on a creative path, a glimmer far in the future, a flicker of imagination, a dawning moment, a spark of an idea, a flame, a light.
Thanks, Randy. My name is Israel. I use he, him for pronouns, and I'm the minister of this congregation. And it is my pleasure to welcome all of you on this beautiful snowy morning here to worship with us. I welcome you all here to this community, to this space of intentionality, this place where we come to meditate and reflect on how to live lives of meaning and purpose. to this space of discovery. We come here perhaps looking for inspiration, to imagine a world of possibilities for ourselves and for our world. To imagine the world not as it is, but what it can be. More beautiful, more loving, more just for everyone. We come here to imagine the world not as it is, but what it must become. So come and enter today with me into this space of imagination. And together, let's discover what our wonderful ideas are for our world. And together, let us begin to change the world.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in the world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Want to change the world? There's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Think that you'll be free if you truly wish to be. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Want to change the world? There's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. There you'll be free if you truly wish to be.
That was beautiful. Good morning, everybody. My name is Lenore Bajar-Dukes. I serve this church as the Director of Lifespan Faith Development. And my pronouns are she and her. And today is a service for all ages, as we hope all our services are. And so right now for our sacred story, I especially invite those of you who are children to come forward a little bit, look into your camera. Camera's on or off, it doesn't matter. This is for you. Our sacred story today is adapted from a book by Kobe Yamada and May Basom. One day, I had an idea. I wondered, where did it come from? Why is it here? I wondered, what do you do with an idea? At first, I didn't think much of it. It seemed kind of strange, ragged at the edges, imperfect, fragile. I didn't know what to do with my idea. I could see the shape of it, but I didn't think anybody else could. So I just walked away from it. I acted like it didn't belong to me. But it followed me. I wondered what others would think. What would people say about my idea? I hid it away and didn't talk about it. I tried to act like everything was the same from before my idea showed up. But there was something magical about my idea. And I had to admit I felt better. I felt happier when it was around. I could tell that it wanted holding. It wanted to play. Actually, it wanted a lot of attention. As I played with it, it grew bigger, and we became friends. I showed it to other people, even though I was afraid of what they might say. I was afraid that if people saw it, they might laugh at it. And many of them did. Many of them did. They said it was no good. They said it was too weird. They said it was a waste of time and that it would never become anything. And at first I believed them. I actually thought of giving up on my idea. I almost listened to them. But then I realized, what do they really know? This is my idea, I thought. No one knows it like I do. And it's okay if it's different and weird and maybe a little crazy. I decided to protect it, to care for it. I fed it good food. I worked with it. I played with it. But most of all, I gave it my attention. My idea grew and grew, and so did my love for it. I built it a new house, one with an open roof where it could look up at the stars, where it could be safe to dream. I liked being with my idea. It made me feel more alive, like I could do anything. It encouraged me to think big and then to think bigger. It shared its secrets with me. It showed me how to turn upside down, because then it said, it's good to look at things differently. And then one day, something amazing happened. My idea changed before my very eyes. It took wings. It took flight, and it burst into the sky. I don't know how to describe it, but it went from being here to being everywhere. It wasn't just a part of me anymore. It was now a part of everything. And then I realized what you do with an idea. You change the world.
We gather here in this community for each other. And even though we cannot be physically with one another, we are here for each other. And we come here every week. And whether this is your first time coming here or your 5,000th time coming here, you bring all of who you are to this community. And we welcome you and your story with open arms. We welcome you to bring your story to this, our communal well, our well of community. The deep depths of this well can hold all that we bring, all of the joys, sorrows, and complex truths of what it means to be human. And they can be held here in this well. Held, caressed, risen up as if floating. All of us here, together swimming as if we were creatures in the sea. So as we bring our stories to this well, I invite you now, if you have a joy, a sorrow, or a complex truth that is on your heart, something that is weighing on you that you just cannot keep to yourself, that must be shared, or that you need the help of loving community to make sense of, to make meaning of. Now is the time to type it into our chat. And I invite you to type it in 15 words or less. And I want to invite us to think that this is your story that you are sharing. It is not someone else's story unless they have asked you to share it, but that it is your story. And if you'd like us to say your name, please type from so-and-so when you type it. Otherwise, we will not share your name out loud when we read it. And one more thing, as we read these joys, sorrows, and complex truths out loud, I invite us all to take a moment, to take a deep breath in between each one, to acknowledge the weight and the importance of what has just been shared, the story of someone's heart. So if you'd like to, you can also, I welcome you to put your hand over your heart after each truth is read out loud, and take a deep breath. And I will place a stone for each of these truths into our well for each of us.
From May, my joy is that it's snowing.
A joy, getting to see my parents and my fiance's parents yesterday.
From Gina, joy of Erica and her new plant.
From Lily, I'm happy because it's snowing.
My prayer is for Larry, Janet, and the whole Carroll family.
From Betsy, a stone for my sister, whose husband passed away unexpectedly on Wednesday. Rest in peace, John. I will miss you.
From Ivana and Len, we are happy to announce that our daughter Lindsay is engaged to marry Vero.
love and concern for my father who has gotten involved in conspiracy theories and is holding on to fear and anger.
Loving and caring thoughts for all the children and adolescents who are socially isolated and lonely because of the pandemic.
From Kitty, caring support for our dear friend as she joins remotely with family today to celebrate.
From Heather, the power of words and music in community to heal.
From Anastasia, missing my mom who passed away on January 5.
From Lenore, a stone for my mother whose uncle passed away and her family.
From Paula, appreciating our four-legged family members.
From Lou, my hope that my COVID test yesterday will prove negative.
A complex truth that we're in such a challenging time for so many to nourish children's imagination every day in a time of uncertainty.
From Marion Joyce, for my mother Irene Crowley and Aunt Hazel Wiseman, whose lives were celebrated before burial in the same Irish village Friday and Saturday. Rest in peace.
From Marianne, joy that the students of School District of Lancaster got to return to in-person instruction this week. Hallelujah, and may it last.
From Suze, care for all teachers and students as they welcome a winter of learning during a pandemic.
From Jean, bought seeds yesterday and watching snow today.
To my friend, happy birthday.
From Lenore, my thankfulness for this congregation that shows me the ways to live my faith.
Prayers for my grandson who lives with us. He is going through a difficult time right now.
And for all of the joys, sorrows, complex truths, and emotions and feelings and everything that words cannot express that remains in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts this day and every day. I drop this shell into our well, so that you may know that, like the depths of the great oceans, all of who you are and what we are and what we will become is held here in this space, in warmth and love. So I invite you all to take a moment with me to be present to all that we have witnessed this day. All of the hope and the pain and the uncertainty and the joy and the life that is going on in our community and in your lives and all around us every day. Life is a precious gift that we are given. And though it may be painful and sometimes all too short, you, my friends, are alive, at least for one more day. One more day to be here with us and to breathe. Don't forget to stop and to breathe and to notice the miracle of your breath in this moment. And know that as long as you have breath, for however long or short, your breath moves you to imagine the world not as it is, but as it must become for all, whether we are here to witness it or not. We each must do our part to build this beautiful world, to sow the seeds of beautiful ideas, even if we will not be here to harvest the fruit. May it be so.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
We take an offering because we recognize that we need each other to survive. Our offering is one tangible way that we open our hearts and begin to live the mission of this congregation. This month, we share half of the offering with the Crispus Attucks Community Center, a nonprofit that supports the preservation of African American cultural heritage and empowers youth and families to reach their full potential. You can support this work as you are able by texting the amount of your donation to the number on the screen or through the Contribute tab on our website at uuclonline.org. Thank you for making all of this possible.
What do you do with an idea? Lenore asked us to think about before and gave us one vision of what that could look like. But did you ever have an idea and feel like you were stuck? Like you didn't know what to do with that idea? Or you had an idea, but it was only a vague idea that something wasn't right, that something wasn't as it should be. Even though everything looks sort of familiar in everyday life, that the way it looked, that the way life is not quite as it ought to be. Do you ever feel like you wanted to move towards that vague idea, not quite yet knowing what it was, but wanting to move towards it, but feeling stuck? Almost as if you didn't know what to do, like there were no options in some sense. You know, so 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, something like that, I felt pretty stuck. I remember I was going through a struggle, a really deep existential struggle of not quite knowing the kind where I was wondering, who am I and what am I doing with my life? I felt like I was stuck in a job that wasn't quite fulfilling to me, even though I was pretty good at it. I felt like I was getting by day to day, but there was just something missing. I had a partner that I loved and still love. And they were with me and we had a life, but I still felt like there was something that I could be doing in my life that I wasn't. I felt like I had missed my purpose somehow. For me, actually, it was that tying back to a purpose or a calling that I had when I was very young to become a minister that I had forgotten about, that was sort of laying dormant within me, that I had pushed aside because it felt like something that, given where I was at that time in my life, was not possible. And I had pushed it aside and forgotten about it, and I went on with my life. But it was sort of like in me all along. And I came to this point in my life where it was starting to surface a little bit, but I kept pushing it back down, and I felt really unfulfilled because of it. Like I had a potential that I wasn't reaching. And so I was depressed. I was really deeply depressed. And I remember sitting with my partner and making lots of lists, because she loves making lists about, goals for the future and what I was going to do and what I wanted to be and what we wanted to do together. And to make these sort of goals and lists, we had to do a lot of imagining about like what could our future look like. And they were aspirational lists. And some things that seem sort of impossible, and some things that I have yet to do, some things that I may never do, and some things that actually I have done and have accomplished. And it was making those lists that I found really powerful, to be able to imagine what the possibilities were for me and for us and for my future and for how I could have an effect on the world and live deeply into my purpose. And at the same time, I was also seeing a therapist. And the therapist had encouraged me to do some writing too, but more like free-form kind of writing, storytelling. And as I was feeling still quite depressed, like I wasn't living into my purpose, every time I sat down to write, I would have this image that would come into my head. And it was almost as if, I felt like when I would close my eyes, I felt like I was stranded on an ice floe, like a piece of ice floating around in a half-frozen lake. And I was on that ice floe, drifting around, stuck. Drifting but stuck at the same time, if that makes any sense. I don't know if you've ever felt like that. And I could look in all directions around the horizon and see nothing. Nothing. As if I could hardly imagine where my future was headed. And this was a really kind of terrifying image for me, actually. And it was really, I think you see that? I almost froze there just thinking about it, remembering what it felt like. And maybe you've had a time in your life where you felt that way too. And I remember I took that image to my therapist and I talked about it, and I didn't quite know how to make sense of it, but the therapist did give me a word, some language that really helped me to make sense of that feeling. And I realized that I was in what's called a liminal space. Maybe some of you have heard that term before. Liminal, L-I-M-I-N-A-L. Wait, did I spell that right? Liminal. You don't need me to spell it, Google it. And I learned later that liminal comes from the Latin word limen, which means threshold. So as in like the space in between a doorway that you step over, where you go from one place to the next. And so a liminal space is a transitional space. Thank you, Gina. A liminal space is a transitional space where you're meant to go from one place to the other, where you're moving forward or moving from one place to the other. But when you're in a liminal space, it's as if you are stuck in that doorway, having stepped from one room, about to step somewhere else, but you haven't made that transition yet. And human beings really, in general, do not like being in liminal spaces. They are confusing, uncomfortable. They can make us restless, can make us feel lonely, or even fearful when we linger there. And that's not to say that they are not beneficial. They are really beneficial, actually. But they can make us feel very uneasy being in them. Almost as if like being on that ice floe where we cannot quite see where we are going yet, even though the room may be just in front of us. So to help you think about this a little bit, liminal spaces, I spent some time on the internet trying to do some research about liminal spaces. And if you want to go down a rabbit hole, Google weirdcore and liminal spaces, and you'll get all sorts of really strange images. But a lot of images used for liminal spaces are things like empty airport terminals, or a really kind of dimly lit empty corridor, a classroom with no students in it, with the lights turned down low, or maybe something like a church with empty pews, with no people sitting in them. Spaces that are transitional, spaces that maybe look familiar but are somehow unsettlingly different. Like I said, human beings don't like being in liminal spaces because they make us feel uneasy or uncertain, like something is not quite as it should be. I certainly didn't like being in my liminal space. And maybe you found yourself in such a space at one point or another in your life. We often find ourselves in liminal spaces when we're going through major life transitions, like after having experienced the death of someone we love, or after going through a divorce. And it's not always in lost situations. Sometimes they're in new beginning situations, like the first day of school or a new job. I remember on my first day of high school, I felt like that, very alone and confused and not quite sure what was coming next and not quite sure what I was doing or what to expect. And I remember the uneasy feeling. And so I ask you to think about if you ever experienced that kind of a feeling. And ask us to think about also where we are today as a country, in our world, in this congregation, and also in your own personal life. Because I think that in many places in our lives, I can't speak about your own personal experience, but I know that in our country and even in this congregation, we find ourselves in a bit of a liminal space right now. Here I am by myself in this room. I spend every day in this building almost, walking empty hallways, and it's kind of creepy. And I think about what will this space be like when people return to it? Will it be the same as it used to be? Or will it, can it, should it be something different? You see, liminal spaces are pretty amazing, even if they are unsettling, because they are a space of creativity and imagination and possibilities. When something is empty, it is like a blank slate, waiting for us to paint a picture on it. You see, the reason that we also enter liminal spaces is because we are ready to move and to do something and to make a change. Or sometimes we're forced upon it, or sometimes it's simply just the part of life. But sometimes we enter liminal spaces intentionally. And I know that when I was in my liminal space of trying to discern my purpose, it was an intentional movement. I was sort of thrust into it, but it became intentional because I realized that it was an opportunity to really think about what was next. It helped me to reframe that space as a space of struggle, yes, and confusion, but also discovery and the potential for transformation of myself and my life into something beautiful. And so I also want you to think about what we are doing in our liminal space. How we will see beyond our fog. How we will see what comes next. Are you feeling brave? Are you willing to take the next step into the unknown? Are you ready to imagine what comes next? In a liminal space, I find it's helpful to ask ourselves some questions. What would it be like to come into this space as someone who has never been here before? As if you were someone from a foreign country coming in and into a brand new culture. How would the ways that things have always been done seem to you if everything was new? Would you ask questions like, why are we doing things the way we are doing? Why do things look the way they look? Why? Why behind everything? Same thing for our country in our liminal space. We ask questions. Why does our culture devalue the experience and the lives of Black and brown people? Why is there no adequate tax on wealth in this country? Why does the stock market exist? Why is wealth in this country distributed so unequally? Why does our building look the way it looks? So what is it like for a new person to enter into a space? I ask you to think about that. And I ask us all to become uncomfortable with uncertainty in our world, in our lives, and in our congregation. To embrace the ideas that we have for making our world and our lives and our congregation more beautiful, more just, more inclusive. Everyone who walks through the doors. To embrace those ideas as they come up, especially when they come up from people who bring a new perspective, an outside perspective. So my challenge for all of us today is to live as if we are in a liminal space, because we are. And to experiment. And to be willing to take risks, to fail, and to try again. I was able to embrace my purpose because I was willing to take risks, to fail several times, to cry, and to get up and to try again. So what do we need to imagine, to reimagine together? I admit that I do not have all the answers for you, but I do know this. And if we take the time as a community to start asking ourselves these questions, something beautiful is bound to happen. I do not have all the answers. But I know this, we only need ask. And think and embrace our ideas, as crazy as they sound. Life, my friends, is too short to ignore your ideas for a better world and a better you and a better community. Life is too short. You have one chance to make a difference in this life. So don't give up. I leave you with this final nugget of wisdom. The Talmud says, or asks, this question: if not now, when? And if not you, then who? If not now, when? And if not you, if not us, then who? Go out and ask those questions.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these vibes.